Well, Greg, we've touched quite a lot on how important welfare is in greyhound racing. I think probably the most important aspect across the world for greyhound racing is to survive and prosper. But I want to talk a little bit more about your GAP programme, which is probably the equivalent of our Greyhound Trust here. Tell us about your adoption days, first of all.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have a national adoption day around Australia where all the GAP programs from every state work together, and that's on one day, and it's promoted over here heavily. But in Victoria alone, we have adoption days at our major clubs, and what we do is we might have 150 greyhounds or 100 greyhounds, and they're put in different sections around the bigger buildings we have here, the bigger racetracks. And you might go along looking for a greyhound that likes to be with a young family, or you go to one spot and there's 7 or 8 to choose from there. Or you might want a greyhound that doesn't mind living with cats or needs attention every day. You know, there's different personalities, and we sectionalise them. And the crowds come in. We have fantastic days where the crowds come in, and you'll see 150, 200 greyhounds adopted on the one day, and people go home disappointed and waiting for the next one. We also have venues throughout the state where you can go up and you can choose a dog. We also, I think what's happened is that the dogs have got to go through, when the greyhound finishes racing, there's a real responsibility and a real clear knowledge that the owner's responsible for rehoming that dog. And so he takes along what's called a GAP testing day. And sometimes the personality of the dog struggles under those tests, and they put him with little puppy dogs and everything else. And if they fail the test, they're not forgotten. They're then helped train. They're given ways of desensitizing the dog back to be able to live in the right environment. And we also have categories of greyhounds. They then go up to different farms and they get more training, and then they're desexed always. And then the price to take one home is, compared to other pure breeds, is so cheap. They've become extremely popular around Australia. They're in my little suburb here of Sandown. When I walk my greyhound, I see other greyhounds all the time. They're everywhere, which is a great thing, because they're, as you know, with one on your couch there, and I know with one on my couch, they're fantastic pets. And it's interesting, we promote that on a lot of our radio interview opportunities, and the feedback we get when we measure the public's perception of greyhound racing is that they're very aware that what used to be an issue with euthanasia is now no longer an issue. The GAP program has made a big difference on that welfare front. So we've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and it works extremely well throughout Australia, the GAP program, because, you know, there's responsible breeding and having the right, just that balance of right numbers to race to 23 race meetings a week, getting that balance right.
Yeah.
And then at the other end, you've got to be able to make sure you can rehome them. Well, we've done an extremely good job of that around Australia. I guess I said, but in terms of welfare, we're also spending a lot of money on racetracks, making sure they're as safe as they could possibly be. And there's a lot of different work going on in that area.
You mentioned a couple of times the onus is on the owners to essentially take care of a dog in its retirement. I think we've got a bit of a problem here with that, which is going to be addressed because we're going to have a bond brought out by the governing body that you have to pay to register a racing greyhound. I think it'll be something like £200, which will be matched by the governing body, and that will go towards a dog's retirement. But how do you impose this thing where the owners are responsible for their dog? How do you?
Well, we track every dog. Every dog is tracked.
So if an owner said I'm paying for that dog's retirement, what would you do?
The fact is that when a dog is retired from racing, the GRB will contact you and say, where's the dog now? The tracking of the dogs is so precise now, until it's rehomed, until it's gone to a rehome and that's both parties are signed off on it, you're responsible. And the GRB want to know where that dog is. So we've got a very exact system, and that's that transparency I was talking about, where, you know, if we're questioned by one of the groups that will think ill of us, we can explain where every dog is. That's a very important part. So the owners now understand, if you want to invest in a dog, like with the syndications that Sandown run, there's a contingency in what you pay for rehoming. There's money put aside to send that dog away. Part of the fee you're paying, if you're paying $15,000 for a dog, there's $1,000 put aside that's kept aside until the dog's rehomed. So it's all part of
what's happening here. That's good.
Yeah.
for me, to attract a new generation to the sport, the welfare basically has to be perfect, I'd say. Pretty much perfect. Would you agree?
I totally. Without that, the next generation won't accept racing.
Yeah.
And they won't accept horse racing using a whip. They won't accept horses going to knackeries either. It's all changing, and so it should.
Yeah. I know it's a very important thing to you, how to attract the new generation. What else can we do to attract a new breed of people to the sport?
What we've done here in Victoria, we've had a number of different concepts. Certainly getting the races on quickly, like 4-hour race meetings are ridiculous. You've got to try and get them to 3-hour race meetings or 2.5-hour race meetings. But you need Sky Channel, who's showing them on TV, to give you the right time slots. You then have the betting opportunities have got to be varied and different. And now we have quickest first splits and dog against dog and match racing and things that like a sporting event. They look at a sporting event and it's, Everton versus Manchester United. Well, it can be dog A versus dog B within a race, or it can be dog A versus dog B in a match race. So you're thinking, you're putting your sport like the younger generation are judging what they bet on, and they'll do multis, and a multi you can do in greyhounds if the betting styles are there. Like the win and place, the parimutuel betting is on the way out, and new betting types where the new generation can bet with are on the way in. So you've got to provide those opportunities. You've got to get the races on in quick fire fashion. You've got to pay out straight away. I guess there's some of the thoughts that we've had, and you've got to make it good, have good vision so you can see them on track, and you've got to have betting opportunities in front of you all the time. I think we do that okay, but we're always trying new things.
I love your speed style racing where, if you said to me, who's the fastest dog in the country, I'd love to be able to give you an official answer through the match racing. I think that's definitely something.
We can. Yeah, that's definitely right.
You also do something else really well. And again, this comes under press coverage a little bit, but you tell stories, be them human interest or canine interest. There seems to be a story almost in every race. And I think you believe that storytelling is important.
Oh, absolutely it is. And we've got more and more opportunities to do that now. We've got radio stations and, a few newspapers, but social media gives you that opportunity as well. And you've got to make stars of the sport. You've got to get people excited about your sport. So, there's a dog at the moment called Simon Told Helen. And the history behind that is fantastic. And a bloke, he hid it from his wife, and who told his wife he had a dog. And then they named the dog Simon Told Helen. That's how the wife found out about the dog. Those sort of stories we tell well. We tell the family ownership stories, and we have opportunities to do that. And social media has only given us a greater opportunity. It's very, very important. You celebrate the stars of your sport, and you celebrate the great achievements of the sport, like we do with every other sport. So we don't hide from the stars. We don't hide from the dogs that win 5 or 6 in a row, or the dog that's won his first race out of 100 starts. They're all stories to tell that engage the people who are reading them in your sport. And it's incredible, Mick Floyd, the racing manager here at Sandown, he loves telling stories, and the things he tells me are the most interesting stories are those quirky little things, and they get massive hits on social media and they get shared, worldwide. And that's good. You got to make your sport like that. You got to make your sport exciting, and talkability is so important in your sport.
Everybody enjoys those stories, and I think that's a massive thing. Dare I say ladies might enjoy the human interest stories more, but this is an area that you really focus on, isn't it? Getting more ladies involved in greyhound racing.
Oh, it's so important for the perception of our sport. It used to be that old man, standing around the gas burner, in his 70s or 80s. This is not the case in Australia. We have many, many ladies involved with our sport. The chairman of Greyhound Racing Victoria, a lady called Peter Duncan, who's passionate about our sport, and she's the chairman of our sport. And we've got on our board, we've got 3 ladies. The clubs are run by ladies. The lady trainers, they're everywhere. We've got heaps of lady trainers. Angela Langton, she's the flavour of the month. She's leading training premiership at the moment, and a lovely woman she is. And we encourage it. There's special races for lady trainers, and we have lady days and everything else that I'll try to get you to come to. But no, it is. It's a family sport. It's an equal lady sport. and the perception that it was an old man sport. We've got to change that perception because it's not true.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. Right, I've been building up to this question. Within the constraints that we have, right, if you were in charge here, Greg, what would you do? What would you do differently? What would you put in place? What would you do?
Oh, look, and again, I go back to the question you asked me about the obligation for the betting shops to contribute to your sport and what support you can get from government in that regard. I don't know how you'd go about that, but it seems to me that unless you've got the money, I mean, you've got a couple of entrepreneurs who have, put their hand in the pocket. Well, that doesn't last forever, and pockets, can become shallow all of a sudden. You can't rely on entrepreneurs. You've got to have a system in place that where those benefiting from your sport contribute, and I don't think they are. It sounds like they're not. So I don't know how I'd go about it, but that's because you need money to make sure that and all of the things that I've talked about, the opportunity to attract people to your sport, the whole welfare, the whole integrity, costs money. You got to have inspectors out there. You got to get the confidence in the punting. Then you got to have integrity officers out there watching what's going on, to making sure that if you're a punter, you trust that every dog's running on its merits equally, have equal opportunity. And as soon as that's gone, you won't get the punting dollar. So, but to do that, again, you need money, you need inspectors, you need help, you need government help. And ultimately, these private bookmaking companies, these betting shops, they've got to make a contribution to your race fields.
Yeah, I agree with you. I say that Mark Bird, who is our managing director, he's made great strides compared to previous people who were in charge on the welfare front and on getting some money in anyway. But I agree with you. I think there's no other business I can think of that doesn't invest in its products. And okay, we're getting some money in, but you've made it very clear our resources are so much fewer and spread so much further than yours are. And look how your sport's thriving, and ours, I wouldn't say it's thriving at the moment. I mean, we've had 2 tracks close recently as a result of the corona pandemic. So yeah, it's we're trying, but it feels like we're always fighting at a sort of a bit of a losing battle. What about in Australia? What are you looking to achieve there? Is there anything on your agenda?
Well, yeah, there is an agenda item that we've put on hold that you'd be pleased to know, and that's assistance worldwide. I think Australia's got to help, and we've got to have a worldwide look at it. It's not good enough for Victoria to be strong and the rest of Australia not to be strong. Australia's got to be strong. It's not good enough for Australia to be strong and grand racing in demise around the rest of the world. We've got to help each other. And there's been suggestions that Australia should be making a greater contribution to assisting other countries. So, we can't have it diminishing everywhere else and strong here. And we can't, there's situations throughout Europe where greyhound racing is actually, there's more greyhound racing in some of the Scandinavian countries, in Pakistan and India, but they don't have welfare programs. Us here in the world who spend some money and who assist some of those countries get proper welfare programs. So if I can see that, in time, Australia's got to reach out and help. Victoria's got to help the rest of Australia, which it is, and then Australia's got to help the rest of the world.
What an amazing position for you to be in. Greg, you've been so interesting to talk to. I'm sure everybody watching this will agree. It's been brilliant to catch up with you. And just want to finish by saying, if you would ever like to invite me to Melbourne again, I am more than willing to come back. I absolutely love my time there. And that's the final thing I would say. Anybody watching this, do get yourselves out there when travel restrictions are lifted and everything, because it's a great night out. Melbourne Cup or generally going greyhound racing there. And you make it welcome, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure all your listeners would know, but when you did come out to the Melbourne Cup, you impressed everyone so much that I tried to get you to stay. But no, it was a wrong time. But you never know. You're delighting. Thank you very much for being involved in our sport over in England.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'll speak to you again soon. But for the interview, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.